But at the same time, get mad at your state's leadership that is refusing to not fund public education the way that they're supposed to, putting us in a difficult position where we're having to modify our health benefits plan. The school district was forced to engage in a reduction in force, something that made headlines and made folks all upset. School districts across Texas are struggling and are facing those same difficult decisions because of the refusal of our state's leadership, not even on accident, by design, to make it harder to fund our public schools.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Talking About It. I'm Ashlee, and if you are like me and sometimes get so frustrated with what the hell is going on, not only in the country, but locally with taxes being raised or different things like that, and you feel like your voice is powerless, then this episode is for you. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of civic engagement, using your voice, and we have a fantastic guest that I am so happy to have back because when he came on the show the first time, he was a candidate, but this time we have Socorro SISD trustee Manny Rodriguez from District 3. So I'm so excited to have the conversation and welcome Manny back to the show. So let's just get into it. Thank you again, Manny, for coming on today. I appreciate it. You've now been a board member for how long has it been?
Since May of last year. And so it's been almost 10 months, if I'm not mistaken, approaching
Yeah.
the year mark for sure.
Yeah. So congratulations. I was happy because of the people that I spoke to and had on the show. You were elected. My average is pretty good for people coming on so far. But I really just am grateful to you and to Ryan because the work that you are doing has been very impactful, and I'm excited for you to just kind of, if you'd like, give a little bit of an update on what's going on in SISD and
Yeah, I mean, number one, thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it. I enjoy coming to your show and speaking to your audience about, not only civic engagement, but really all things public education here locally. And, since joining the board, we've taken a lot of amazing steps. We have addressed the deficit budget that the district had at this point last year. We hired a new superintendent and we went local. For me, I've always said that I think that we have folks here in the community that are grown and that are from El Paso and that are more than capable of doing the job. And so I'm very pleased that we, as a board, collectively, unanimously selected James Vasquez to become our new superintendent, I'm not sure if I ever told you this, but he was my elementary school principal at Horizon Heights Elementary. There's actually, I have a yearbook. I don't think there's any pictures of us together in that particular yearbook, but he was my principal. And so now it's a full circle moment to be able to work alongside with him and with my colleagues to make sure that we're moving the district in a good direction. So yeah, so that's a little something that I like to share all the time just because I think it's pretty neat. Not something you see every day.
mm. Yeah, it's cute. And I know that he addressed it in one of the board meetings because, again, I don't have kids in SISD. We homeschool, or we did homeschool, and so people ask me quite often, well, why do you talk to these people? Why you don't have anything to do with it? And just because you don't have school age kids, or even if you're homeschooling and you're living in those districts, the things that are happening are still affecting you. So it's important to be plugged in and to understand what's going on because you're still going to pay property taxes on the school district. So it's better that you're informed and you're making these decisions based off of having education on it and understanding what some of these things are rather than my kids don't go there. It doesn't matter. It does.
It does. And you're absolutely right. Shortly after we hired the superintendent, we took a very big, bold step to authorize what's called a voter approval tax reduction, to put it on the ballot for our voters to consider. And exactly what you just mentioned right now is what I would hear a lot when I would go to the doors, especially for those who maybe didn't have a strong voting record, or were, maybe, had voted once or twice before in the past. And one of the things that I would hear from them is, oh, well, it doesn't matter because I don't have kids in the district. I'm like, well, you don't have kids in the district, but you live within the jurisdiction of the Socorro Independent School District. And your tax rate when you pay property taxes at the end of the year, uh, uh, the school district is on there. And actually, as a matter of fact, that's the biggest share that you have on there in terms of where a majority of your property taxes go to. And so I would always try to, make sure that we educated folks, even though you don't have kids in the school district, let's think about your neighbor's kids. Let's think about kids that you do know, or maybe you have friends who have kids that go to our school district. And so if you have the ability to support our school district in this particular election, I would encourage you to do so. So maybe it's folks thinking that they can only participate in those sorts of elections if they are SISD parents, but that's not the truth. If your local school district ever has an initiative on the ballot and you live within the school district, regardless of whether you have kids or not, you're able to vote in those elections. I don't have kids of my own, and I serve on the school board, and I'm an avid voter. I never miss an election. And for me, it's just important to always support these great initiatives that our public entities put forth all the time.
Yeah, so the aquatic center, the people were coming out because they use that pool for things outside of school. So the seniors go. You're affected in these ways that you might not even know about. And that's what we're here to do, is just to give you guys the information. Manny, you're talking about the VATER a little bit, and it was put on the ballot and it did not pass this time around. Uh I think it was a couple of things that happened. People hear tax increase and automatically it's a no without seeing what would have happened. So, can we talk a little bit about the VATER? What were some of the consequences of it failing and what can be fixed,
Yeah.
moving forward?
Yeah. So, I mean, number one, the VATER, or it's an acronym for the Voter
Yes.
Approval Tax Rate Election. It's a very complicated thing to understand, even, for myself. It took me a little bit to really get familiar with what it is. I knew that it was a good thing, especially when I heard, or learned rather, that we had never done one before. And our two largest school districts, the El Paso Independent School District and the Isleta Independent School District, have pursued these sorts of elections before in the past, where basically they ask their voters if they can modify their tax rate, therefore unlocking additional funds from the state. Because not only would you be modifying the taxing formula that local homeowners have with your school district, but you're also modifying the taxing formula that the school district has with the state of Texas, essentially recapturing more funds that are initially intended for public education, but the state uses them for something else. And so we're asking our voters to authorize the recapture of those funds. APISD and YSD have successfully pursued those elections before in the past. And as a result of that, those two school districts are receiving approximately $1,000 more than us in the Socorro Independent School District per student. That to me is unacceptable. And I'm a product of the school district, and I remember under the leadership of our previous superintendent at the time, Dr. Jose Espinosa, phenomenal superintendent, by the way. I loved his energy, I loved his vision, I loved his ambition for SISD. And I would always hear him say, so in Socorro ISD, we do more with less. And that's okay up to a certain extent. Not anymore though. There's consequences to doing more with less. Teachers burn out, and that reflects in the work that is produced. Our students may not have such a great experience, and we hear it all the time, right, from educators themselves, that they feel like they have a lot on their plate. Well, there's a reason for that. I hear it not only from educators, but I hear it from our custodians. I hear it from our cafeteria workers. I hear it from our bus drivers, from folks that work in the special education department, and all of the phenomenal folks that work to operate our district on a daily basis. There's a reason why they feel burned out, why they feel like there's a lot of stuff on their plate. And it is rooted in the fact that in SISD, we are receiving approximately $900 to $1,000 less per student in comparison to our other school districts. And so for me, it's top priority to get that addressed and to get that fixed, because we cannot continue to operate that way. That's no way to operate a school district. And so the VATER was an effort to modify the tax rate that Socorro ISD has with its local residents, and I was very disappointed
Yeah.
when it failed. I was one of the most avid supporters for it. I was out there knocking on doors, not only in my district, which is Socorro, Eastlake, and the Americas High School area, but I ventured out into El Dorado. I went to neighborhoods around Montwood High School. I was
Yeah.
around the Pebble Hills High School area. I was in Horizon City. I was in Socorro. I was in rural Socorro because I also represent Socorro High School, but I was out in District 4 knocking on doors, having conversations with voters, trying to figure out how can I make this complex issue, how can I condense it in 45
Yeah.
seconds and get folks to support it? And we were able to do that. And every door that we knocked on, and we just got an incredible amount of support for it. Ultimately, it wasn't enough though.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's fantastic, and I saw you all over the place talking about it, and I think part of the problem is just, people don't know what they don't know, and you going out there, you're only one person, and I know there was other candidates that were out there as well, but I mean, you guys can only cover a certain amount of area.
And
Let me ask.
and
Go
if
ahead.
I, a lot of incredible volunteers, folks that work
Yeah.
for ISD were out there, were showing up every weekend because that's showing up matters. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful to them because these were folks that had never really campaigned before in the past. For me, it's something natural. It's something that I've been doing for 8 years for myself, for other candidates. And they came out because they believed in their local school district. They wanted to make it better. And they knew that it was a lot bigger than themselves, right? They knew that if we were able to pass this, we were going to bring $50 million for SISD, not a one-time infusion, annually. And
Yeah.
it was going to change the game. We were going to invest in student programs. We were going to retain staff. We were going to contribute to the health benefits plan. We were going to be able to buy new computers and all of that stuff. And they showed up for those reasons. And I'm eternally grateful for them for believing in the mission and for being there.
No, I think it's important, and I think that you said something very important there, and it's people who have never done it before were behind it and got behind it, and I think it's because you were able to talk to them and help them understand what it is. Just because it says a tax increase or whatever it is, you're going to get tax increases regardless, but at least you'll be able to have a say in how it's dispersed or how that percentage is put out. Let me ask you, Manny, is the reason specifically the reason that EPISD and YISD getting that much more was because voters on that side did approve that something similar. Is that what the main difference is? Like, so they got it, and that's why they're getting so much more money.
The only difference is that they've pursued these elections before in the past, and elections have consequences. You
Yeah.
successfully pass an election, you receive these types of elections, you receive more funding for your local school district. You don't do it successfully, there's consequences to that
There's
too.
consequences. So let's talk about that a little bit. So because it did fail, and I was an advocate of it as well. In the beginning, when you guys were running as candidates, that was one of the big questions that I kept getting. And we had lives and everything, and people were asking about my tax is going to get increased. And you guys were very, very good. And I'm saying you guys, but I'm speaking specifically of you and Ryan. You specifically said we need to see what it's going to be about, and if it makes sense and it's going to help us in the long run, then that's something that we're seriously going to consider. So once you guys started talking about the VATER, voter approved tax, yeah. So once you guys started talking about it, and I started reading into it, you guys or SISD did a really good job about after you guys got elected, because I think also what happens is that prior to you guys being elected and like having the board hearing elections, the board that was there already was exhausted. They were wiped out. They were just having so many things come at them that I don't think them having a full board made it easy for them to do anything and get things completed.
Yeah.
So after that fact that you guys did get elected, you have a full board. I noticed immediately because I watch all the meetings, the energy changed. It was a shift. and you could see Mr. Nahida have color in his face again and just be like, okay, we're good. And see all of the other board members who were there previously looking to the newly elected ones like, okay, we have a team now. You guys came in and you had ideas, you had thoughts, you guys all collaborated, and people are like, how does she know? Again, you guys show the work sessions that you have on YouTube, and then you also show the board meetings. So there's information out there. You just need to find it, and we will definitely have resources and links for you guys to be able to follow SISD on their websites. They're mostly on social media, and the board meetings are on YouTube. So make sure to have all that. So because it didn't pass, right? Whenever you guys got in, I don't think there was enough time to explain it and get the word out.
Yeah.
Things had to happen, stuff had to be cut because you lost that money because people weren't properly aware of what it was or educated on it.
Yeah.
Some of the cuts that happened, that the one that I just am off the top of my head is the employee insurance,
The health benefits plan.
the health benefits program, and the what do you call that thing? The medical center that was
Yeah, our
in there.
health clinic.
Health clinic, yeah. So can we talk again just a little bit about some of the things that had to be cut or modified and what we can do or what's in process of us being able to fix it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of the VATER failing, I've received a lot of feedback on why it failed. And ultimately, it was a numbers game.
Mm,
We saw a significant increase in voter turnout this previous election than in any other election before in the past, and that's a good thing.
yeah.
But I'll also say that once we ran the numbers, we really would have had a hard time tracking the new voters because these are folks that really hadn't voted before in the past in really many elections and maybe once in a presidential election. And those are really the voters that you don't track come out during a off presidential election year.
Mm,
And so while an increased voter turnout is good, I would also encourage folks, make sure you do your homework when you go out and vote in these elections and get a better sense of an understanding of what is on your ballot because it is so much more than just candidates. Sometimes these ballot initiatives are on the ballot, and if you don't know or if you don't understand what they are, voting against them can have some very serious consequences like the ones that I'm going to outline right now. The Vader failed. The very next day, we voted unanimously to modify the health benefits plan that we have for our more than 6,000 person workforce, essentially increasing premiums, lowering the school district's contribution to the health benefits plan, and affecting the take home pay for folks. I've gone to our campuses. I've gone to now so far about 5 of them since taking that vote, and I've met with the personnel and I've talked to them about this bluntly. They're upset. And one of the reasons why I've gone to those campuses is because I want to show face and I want to let them know that, you know, yes, we voted to authorize that modification, but it wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. Right. I'm a huge believer that health care is not a privilege, but rather it's a human right. And it was devastating for me personally to have to take that vote. But I also knew that if we voted in a different way, we're still under a conservatorship. And our conservators have the authority to override our votes. And not to say that we were going to lose local control of our school district if we would have voted in a different manner, but we don't want to be under TA's radar. Right? We don't want for the TA commissioner to recommend for duly elected members of the Board of Trustees to be removed and replaced with appointments. And so we had to demonstrate that we had what it takes to make difficult decisions because either way, it would have ended up being the same outcome either way. Because our conservators would have still overrode our decision if we would have voted in a different direction. And
mhm.
so that's one of the things that I've been communicating to folks. Ultimately, even if the Vader would have passed, health premiums would have gone up, but they would have not increased in the way that they did. It
Right.
was a very significant increase. We had 3 options to choose from, all of which included an increase in premiums. It lowered our contribution, but that we would have been able to mitigate the impact. And so unfortunately, that didn't take place. We also later on offered the largest separation incentive that Socorro ISD has ever offered in history, $2,500 folks to voluntarily separate from the district,
Right.
retire early, and all of that stuff. Before in the past, that amount was a lot lower per, per individual
Person.
that volunteered to retire early or to end their contract with the school district. And honestly, it seems likely that in a couple of weeks, we're going to have to take out what's called I'm forgetting the name right now off the top of my head, but it is essentially a loan so that we can meet our payroll requirements. This would be the third time that the core ISD would take out one of these loans because we just simply don't have the funds in our reserves to be able to accommodate that. And to me, one of the things that I've been telling folks, these are the consequences of
Yeah.
the failure of the voter approval tax election, our proposition that we had on the ballot. And that to me is no way. What we're doing right now, the way that we're operating with separation incentives, increasing premiums, affecting take home pay for our employees, and having to take out yet another loan to meet our payroll requirements, this is no way to operate
Yeah.
a school district. It just isn't.
No, and I think that it's very important that people realize that. So think of your household and think of everything that you need, and you're basically pulling out loans so that you can just pay your bills, right? And it might be happening right now, honestly, with everything that's going on in the country, the increase of health benefit, everything right now is in an increase. So you might already be feeling this in your homes. And I understand that. And I understand the fear of hearing tax increase and being like, no, think about it in a way that is a long term solution because your taxes are going to continue to increase. But if you take action and you do more research, SISD, I don't know who the man is, but he does such a wonderful presentation on talking about what the VATER is. He breaks it down into like coins, like a gold coin, a bronze, like he breaks it down in such a wonderful way, or the team does. They break it down in a wonderful way where you can make sense of it. And I think if we can understand that and watch the presentation, I don't know, maybe he can do a presentation that you can have on the website if people are going to look it up, where he's just kind of breaking it down the way he does for you guys, well, for everybody during the meeting if they don't have time for watching the meeting, which I say make time, rewatch it. Let me ask, is this gonna come to vote again? Is this something that we can maybe have a do-over on and see, you know, if we get enough people a little bit more informed on what it is this something that can help SISD in the future to kind of catch up to where EPISD and YISD is as far as that money per student?
Yeah. So the answer is yes, we can do this again. And we are restricted to having these elections on a November ballot. So uh I'll tell you from comments that I have picked up from my colleagues on the board that are also publicly available. It looks like some of them are they understand the significance of it and are in favor of doing it again. I can't speak for them, but I most certainly am. I have
Yeah.
said it publicly before. If this comes for a vote before us again so that we can place it on the ballot, I'm a yes vote on it. However, I will say that I think that the school district has to do a lot more to make sure that we are getting to our voters earlier to give them context.
Yes.
And I say this to voters because unfortunately parents are not voters. And what you were mentioning earlier, this is about mass communications is really all that it is. We have about 60,000 individuals that we're tracking that usually participate in midterm elections like the one that is set to take place later on this year. It's a much bigger animal than a constitutional amendment election like the one that happened last year.
Yes.
Last year we were tracking, last year we had maybe about 18,000 folks that participated in that election. Now we're talking about tripling that to close to 60 to 70,000 individuals. That's expensive to reach out to that
Yeah.
amount of households and individuals, whether it be home visits, text messages. But trust me, I've said this before. It is a lot different for us to authorize an initiative to be on the ballot than to actually get it across the finish line.
Yeah.
That's where our political action committee comes in, which I'm heavily involved in. And through our political action committee, we get to actually support the initiative, raise money so that we can send out mailers, text messages, pay canvassers and whatnot. And so this upcoming election in November, it's going to be a beast. It really is, because we are going to have to run a massive operation on the political action committee side of things to actually get this thing across the finish line. And I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to do that. There's a lot of work that's taking place right now to make sure that we beef up our political action committee with the funds needed to be able to engage in that mass communication. And so, but that's the answer, yes. And one of the things that I like to do is just give folks a rundown. Yes, the VATER failed. This is where we're at. We have an opportunity to do this again, but we need your support, right? We need
Yeah.
we need for you to make a commitment to to vote in every election. I've been telling folks, make it a habit to vote in every election that comes your way, because believe it or not, I mean, it has impacts, not just school board elections, but
And everything.
everything.
Your circle of life that we call it, thanks to Kathy from Kindness. She let me know. She's like, it's we look at the circle of life, and circle of life, I hear the Simba, the song coming out. And
Yeah,
she's like, no, she's like, it's not that one. It's everything that touches your life has an effect on your mental health, has an effect on everything. And I'm gonna just go back a little bit. So with the Vader this last time, 52.8% of SISD voters cast ballots. 47.2% voted for it. And I think that, you know, kind of in the board meetings, I started seeing more teachers be for it. They were like, okay, they were understanding it, they were getting it. And I think that our teachers can't do it all, y'all. You have to show up for the teachers. You have to show up for the custodial people. You have to show up for the nurses, for the admin, the secretary. Like, you have to show
very,
up for them. Yeah. If
very
if you don't have kids in SISD, you still know somebody, I imagine, that works for them. And it's very important that you take this information, and you can go to epcountyvotes dot no, I think it's epcountyvotes.com.
mhm,
And on there, you can look up previous ballot measures. You can check. This is the most important part, y'all. You have to first check to make sure that you're registered to vote. If you are not registered to vote, you need to sign up to register to vote, and you can do that through epcountyvotes.com. You put in your birthday, your name, your address, and it will say if you are registered. If you're not, then you can register to vote.
right. And if I just can interject
Go
here,
ahead.
unfortunately, here in Texas, you can't register to vote online. You can print out your application and then you can mail it to your local county elections department. It is way past time that we move away from those practices. We're living in 2026. It's time that this state has online voter registration. But right
And
now, other than
does
that,
it have to be postmarked? We have, like, this whole postmark thing going on right now. So something like that would be important,
mm,
that if you're gonna register to vote, start checking now so you can print everything out and get it mailed in, right? That would probably be the best thing for them to do.
that's right. There's a deadline to register to vote before every election. Right now, there's a runoff that's scheduled for late May, and the deadline for folks to register to vote for that election is in early May. So folks
Okay.
should get in. If they're not registered, they should get their applications in this month so that they can participate in that runoff election where there's some very important judicial races on the ballot as well.
Yes, perfect. So everybody go to epcountyvotes.com so that you can make sure to check that you're registered to vote here locally in El Paso. And then you can, I don't know what a major organization would be. I think Ballotopedia, you can also check your registration status. But yeah, just make sure that you guys are checking and being a part of it, because your voice matters. We used to get it hammered in our heads that, like, one vote isn't going to make a difference. And it might not, right? But several people who are voting and coming together for a common cause, it makes an impact. It really does. We need to get better about showing up for others outside of ourselves, because I know, guys, we were in this thing where it's like all about me and my thing and what's going on. But we've gotten so far into that shit that it's a mess. We need community. We need to build. We need to care about what's going on in our, not in our neighbors' houses, but in their lives. We need to make sure that the quality of life that we want, everybody else can have. And we can achieve that by educating ourselves on people who are running for office. You mentioned the runoff coming up here in May. That's a huge one. It's for judges, and the judges that are going to be like, everybody is on FitFam complaining all the time about the judges, and they bonded them out, and they did this, and they did that. Some people are winning because nobody's running against them. Some people are winning because, or some of these runoffs are, like, with 2, 300 votes. Like,
That's
we need to do better.
we
This
do.
is ridiculous. We can we it's okay for us to want better, and it's okay, we deserve it. We deserve a safer community, we deserve a community who, our schools are covered, people are getting paid, like, we deserve that. Don't feel bad for wanting that because it's attainable. I
Yeah.
think in our culture, we are so, like, struggle culture. Our parents struggled, they grinded, and so that's just kind of carried on. I will say, Manny, for you, seeing you and being how young you are and how involved and invested, that is the change that we need, and that is progress, and that is you breaking cycles, and I think that it's so important. My daughter's 20 now. She's been voting since she was 18. Before that, she wanted to be voting, but she wasn't allowed to, but she would follow all of the elections with me. We would talk about candidates, and I'm never gonna tell you all who to vote for or what to vote for or anything like that because you have freedom of choice, whether people think that they do or not right now. But I will say, when you're voting and you're making these decisions, think about how you would want them and think about the long term. Because I think that we are such a people of instant gratification or instant results or instant things. And when it's not happening, we tune out and say, oh, well, it's not going to work. And
Yeah.
then that's why I don't vote. You know what I mean? So I think it's very important that we just follow through, show up, and continue to be out there.
And you're absolutely right. Voting is the essence of our democracy, and I don't say that lightly. I am very blessed to be where I am right now, to be on the board of the Socorro Independent School District, of one of our local public school entities. And I hear a lot of chatter about democracy being under attack, and I believe it. I've heard it from our local congresswoman. She's been in briefings that shows that, and she's been, outspoken about it, that shows that American democracy is in rapid decline as a result of the actions of this administration. Everything that they're doing, from engaging in endless wars to unprecedented action in invading foreign countries to challenging pillars of our country like
Mhm.
birthright citizenship and
Yeah.
attacking voters' rights. And so we are in a steep decline. And I know that a lot of folks feel helpless. Right now we are, especially in this state where we are living in a Republican trifecta. We live in a state that's controlled by Republicans. We right now live in a country where both the House and the Senate are controlled. And a lot of folks feel helpless. And I understand that. But there is a way to challenge that here locally. There is something that we can do. And I don't say it just because I'm on the board of the Socorro Independent School District. I say it because it's something that I came to realize. Our schools are the backbone
Yeah.
of American democracy. Public schools across the country. If you think about it, these are places that bring together students from all walks of life, of different socioeconomic statuses, of different religions and cultures, ethnicities, languages, and yes, even students of our beautiful LGBTQ community. All to come in one space to learn from one another, to learn about the beauty of community, to learn about the diversity of our country and who we are. And that's, to me, it's not coincidental that we are seeing strong attacks out of this administration into our public education school system,
Yeah.
dismantling the Department of Education that provides vital services for students across the country. Attacks from our governor and our state's leadership to defund public schools, even though they infused $9 billion in the last legislative session. That was the first time that they did that since 2019. For 6 years straight, our schools were operating off of the same funding levels that they were in 2019. And for me, they can talk all that stuff that we invested in public schools. Yes, they did, but not nearly enough as what they should.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially with prices in 2019 to price, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
to what everything is costing now, whatever they invested, was probably a fraction of what they could have done had they been continuously doing that. And I think
Exactly.
that it's very important that you said that. We are run Texas has been run by Republicans since, like, was it the early 2000s,
Yeah.
right? That we were talking about the other day. We haven't had a governor, a Democratic governor, since the 90s. People in Texas, we're so proud of being Texan and we're so Texas and this and that. Look at what it has done to our school system, to all of these things. Like,
To even hospitals in rural
yes.
Texas are closing down because the legislature is not investing in them. And so,
Yeah.
and schools are closing down across the state because they're not being properly funded. And one of the things that I've been sharing with folks, it is a choice to not fund public education here in this state because not only do we live in the richest country in the face of this planet, we also live in a state that if we were our own country,
Yeah.
we would be the eighth largest economy in the world, larger than the economies of Russia and Canada and countries like Italy as well. And
Yeah.
so it is a choice to not invest in public education because this current state's leadership is focused on the governor's friends, on billionaires, Fortune 500 companies, and making it easier for them to come to our state, which we welcome. It's economic development, but our folks on the ground, our teachers, our personnel, our educators, and all of the amazing folks that run a school district, they need help. They need our state's help, and they need for our state leadership to step up and invest in public education the way that they're supposed to. Because let me tell you something. We are in Socorro ISD. We are the region's third largest employer, only third to EPISD, also a critical institution for education, and Fort Bliss. And so, for many communities across the state, especially in rural communities, public education is the lifeline and it's the economic engine of that community because it provides jobs, it provides employment for their folks, and therefore it's contributing back to its local economy. And so, for me, it's way past time that this state stops stalling on
Yeah.
investing in public education and instead of funneling $1 billion for vouchers to so that wealthy kids can go to private school. I mean, that to me, you have your priorities all wrong.
Yeah. I mean, and like the vouchers, I was getting asked a lot about the vouchers because it's like, well, you homeschool. So are you going to take advantage of the vouchers? No, I'm not going to because it's kind of like a dangle a bait. And yes, you said it perfectly. If you're a rich kid who's already going to private schools, that's just additional. But if you're a homeschooling parent like I am, like, that's not enough to cover full tuition or anything like that, and they're saying it's like 10,000 per kid or something like that. It doesn't even come up to that. It starts at a lower rate, and depending on if your kid is, like, special needs or anything like that, then it increases, but then you're capped. So, I don't think that it makes any sense. I think it like, you're right, it's just a matter of defunding public education, trying to do you remember when, like, you would ask people what they wanna be when they grow up? Ugh, I just had a Snoop Dogg song in my head, and but when they used to ask, and it was like firefighter, teacher, police officer, and doctor, and now that's just a thing of the past. Education has been so torn down that those occupations that were so looked high up upon and things like that, it's just like I don't have the words for it, but they basically are shit talking being a teacher or any science they say it's not true or anything like that. Like, it's just constant questions. And that's not what it needs to be. What needs to be is you wouldn't be in those places had you not been educated by teachers, had you not been, and I don't understand why. Well, I do understand in the big scheme of things why they're trying to keep people ignorant and uneducated and, just kind of that's what their goal is. They've said plain out they love the uneducated. And if that doesn't mean something to you, then I don't know.
Yeah,
But I think more people are starting to come around. They're starting to see that, I mean, geez, look at the well, even that was kind of a shit show. The election with Tellerico and Jasmine Crockett was kind of like a whole thing in and of itself, but we're on a forward
right.
path to progress and people highest voter turnout for those elections, and I'm hoping again in November that people are turning out for their candidate. I think that either way that we went, we were gonna be okay. I just think that we need a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
I think that we need younger government officials. I think that we need
Well,
to
and if
stop.
and if I
Go ahead.
can if I can just interject here too, because I hear that all the time about us needing more young leaders stepping into this role, and I don't disagree. But I think that we have to be more specific with that. We have to make sure that we have more young, ambitious leadership, individuals that have an ambitious and an incredible outlook for the future of the entities in which they're wanting to serve in.
Mm,
Because I'll tell you, it is no use to have younger folks in office if they don't have that bold, ambitious leadership for them to take their entity into the next level. And
I see.
so, for me, that is just so, so important because that's one of the things that I've been pushing. I mean, for me, at this point in time, it is top priority to fix this issue that we have in the school district where we're receiving $1,000 less per student in comparison to our other to our other two school districts. And it's unpopular to advocate for a VATER and to be so involved in it in the way that I was because you're campaigning for tax increases and whatnot. But I've gotten to the point where I've come to realize because during the time when I was campaigning for the VATER, I did receive some backlash from some online platforms and whatnot. And so, for me, it was a lot of noise that they just didn't really understand um the passion, I guess, that I had for trying to get an initiative like this across the finish line because I knew what it was going to mean for our students and whatnot. But I've come to the point to realize and to accept. I'm like, I have every intention of running for reelection again because for me, the work is not done until it's done. But I would much rather have a hard time during my reelection campaign or even losing it, trying to fight for something than getting reelected and not having done anything at all and playing it safe.
Yes.
Because ultimately that's what it comes down to. You can try to make all of these things up and try to mitigate it, but at the end of the day, we as members of the school board, either we vote for it or against it. And voters on the ballot have the same choice. Either you vote for it or against it. There is no in between.
Yeah.
And so for me it's that simple. Is that it is that simple. And it's a hard conversation to have all the
Yeah,
time,
it
but
is.
I don't mind it. To me, I think that public education is one of those things that it's always going to be worth the investment
Mm.
all the time. We are under better leadership. I know that Socorro ISD has had financial problems in the past,
They
but
all have. All of the districts have, you know?
let me tell you something. I get irritated when now that I'm on the school board. I think I hear those comments, right? That, cut from the top and you're taking care
Yes.
of your administration too much and you're all of these things. And I think those are very valid concerns. Those are very valid things to bring up. But folks, I think are redirect they're getting angry at us. We're the problem, apparently. And to a certain extent, yes, hold us accountable. We have a responsibility of conducting oversight of this school district. And so when things get out of hand, I think, those sorts of questions are very valid for folks to bring up to. But at the same time, get mad at your state's leadership. Get mad at your
Yep.
state's leadership that is refusing to not fund public education the way that they're supposed to, putting us in a difficult position where we're having to modify our health benefits plan. Where at the time, back in February of last year, the school district was forced to engage in a reduction in force, something that made headlines and made folks all upset. I'll tell you that it all stems from the fact that our school districts across Texas are struggling and are facing those same difficult decisions because of the financial constraints that they
Yep.
have, because of the refusal of our state's leadership by design, not even on accident, by design to make it harder to fund our public schools. And so I'm
Yeah.
sorry that I interrupted you when you were talking about just
No. I like the clarification, and I think for me, when I say younger candidates or younger changing of the guard, it's because I meet people like you, like Jesse Moreno from the Young Democrats. Like I'm
just
seeing I'm seeing you guys, and man, I am just so blown away by what you all are doing. And so when I say young, that's what my what do you call it? My measurement is by you guys, is
Bar
seeing what y yeah, it's by seeing what you guys are doing, and I'm like, "Hell yes." I mean, Jesse has just been fantastic. From when I first met him, when he was working with Cassandra Hernandez, when I first met him to having my first interview with him, to seeing what he's doing now with the Young Democrats and what you all are doing is fantastic, and so that to me, I say young, but that to me is like is what I mean, and I think that you all are creating a movement. I am excited to see it, and I know that with you all behind or ahead, that like we're gonna be in good hands. And as always, I am always here for you all to come on to talk about these things. I think that it's important. I think now we are what about 7 months out till November about.
Yes.
So y'all, if you are listening to this and you live in El Paso, look up the VATER. You can just do VATER and it'll pop up all of the past information. It's very important. Look up your candidates and just educate yourself on these candidates that we have in these bonds. It's very important. Manny, thank you for coming on and just educating me because a lot of the stuff too, I'm 45. Some of my thinking is not outdated, but we just have different ways of thinking, and so you're always really good about clarifying and kind of I keep saying educating. What's another word that I can use other than educating? Like, you're not clarifying, but, like, you're opening my eyes to a different perspective and to see things, and, I think that we can learn so much from our young people. I think they can learn from us
Yes, I agree.
OGs as well, because in our 40s, we've done, seen, been through some shit. A
Yes,
lot of us now are in, like, our healing era, so we have that raw, just straightforwardness, but we also have compassion,
yes.
empathy, caring because we see our children, we want them to have a better future, and so,
I'll
I think
that as the youngest guy on the board, and serving alongside, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds on the
Mhm.
board, I love learning from them. I love learning from their wisdom. They've taught me sometimes to slow down.
Yes.
They've taught me to, to not beat myself up so hard.
Mhm.
They've been fighting this fight a lot for a very long time as well, and they're very familiar with the challenges
Yeah.
that our public education systems face. And I'm very, very grateful to be serving alongside incredible individuals that are career educators. My colleague Alice, she retired from the district after being a counselor for more than 20 years. I serve on the board also with Maribel Macias, who was
Mm.
a teacher, assistant principal. She was, a cabinet member for a
Yeah.
superintendent, and an astonishing career. And alongside my other colleagues, business owners, veterans, folks that are just devoted to giving back to their community, and I've learned so much from them. But I would hope that I would hope that they've learned a lot from me as well.
I think so, and I think you see it in the board meetings and in the work sessions. I do think so, and I think that it's an important lesson that we can learn from each other. We don't have to think one is right, the other is wrong, or Gen X is mean and Gen Z and above they're soft or whatever it is. We just have to find a common ground, and I think I struggle with that a lot because of my tone and how I say things, and my vocabulary is just terrible. But like I care, you know what I mean? And I think just finding common ground and listening and hearing each other and actually like taking the information in rather than just being defensive, building a wall and being like, no, that's you hurt my feelings. Like, and I apologize a lot. Like, I didn't mean for myself, I didn't mean to sound mean. I didn't, so me doing a podcast is something else because it's really like I have to talk to people. And so I really had to like make sure my tone is okay. And sometimes I say things and I never come from a place of malice. I come from a place of caring.
You know,
So my words might
I know that I sounded a little bit angry right now about public education, and that's because I am.
you should be angry.
And so if our state's leadership ever hears this podcast, I want you to know that I am upset at you, and
Yeah.
you should change your priorities.
They need to. I mean, and I think just with you being young, I think all of these generations are going to come together eventually. I think it's happening more now.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to start to see change. I have to think like that because like everybody else, I opened up my phone, I see the news, and I'm like, "Fuck, what today?" It's just
It's
nonstop. I was listening to the Supreme Court hearings on the birthright citizenship, and that physically making me cringe, like, how are we having these conversations, just a lot of this backwards movement, I don't agree with it, and I just we need to do better. And I know that we are, but this is the first step is continuing to talk about these issues, continuing to educate and let people know what they can do, how they can be of help, because I think more people want to be of assistance. They just don't know how to do it. And so I'm asking you, Manny, to continue your push and ask the school board to please have that man do a video only that we can circulate on social media talking about I'm like so serious. We need a reel of him
yeah,
just kind of breaking it down
I have to tell
because
them
I
I only have 45 seconds, and that's too much.
it
Because
is. I know, it's like 30 to 90, so when I'm trying to cut a reel too, but seriously, I mean, I think that would help a lot because unfortunately people's attention spans are 15 seconds. And so I just think that we need to continue to push that. I think if he can do that, even if we can put it out on YouTube, on your YouTube channel, I think that that will help so much for people to understand. And people, get off your asses and go vote,
yeah,
please.
yes, please do that. And,
Yes.
you that this upcoming VATER is going to be, if authorized by myself and my colleagues, or at least the majority of us, it will be different from from the one
From the last one.
from the last one.
Okay.
And
Well,
so
yeah, because you have more ground to make up now, right? With the new loans that you've had to.
yes, not only that, but the modification will be different. The last
Okay.
penny swap election, and I
Yes.
can't really definitively say what it's going to be because that vote will potentially come to us in August. And so
Okay.
I know that our chief financial officer is going to be playing with the numbers so that we can know exactly what we're dealing with.
Perfect.
Nevertheless, at the end of the day, I know that this is something that we have to do. And so I just wanted, before we close out, I wanted to thank you so much for having me on, for letting me speak about this very important topic, about the status of our school district, about the challenges that we face, and how folks have to hold our state leadership more accountable because, the only reason why we're struggling is because of a lack of support from the state. Not only us as school districts, but our other local governments that also offer vital services, like our county government and the city of El Paso, our community college district, like EPCC. These are all amazing institutions that offer such phenomenal services to thousands of El Pasoans, and they deserve to be invested in heavily
Yeah.
because we're producing our future workforce. We're producing the future of our community, and I want El Paso to be a competitive region, and all of these entities that I just mentioned, they're just a pillar of that, right?
Yep.
All of our pillars have to be strong so that so that we can sustain a prosperous economy, so that folks can have access to better jobs, to higher wages, to a better quality of life. It all stems from all of that, but it all stems and it originates from public education. So thank you so much for having me
Yes.
on. I greatly, greatly appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate you. Anytime you wanna come back on, just always, just shoot me a message. I'm always down to talk about this because I think it's important. I think the closer we get to November, y'all are gonna start seeing a little bit more of me hitting on civics classes for everybody because I feel like we don't have civics in school anymore, and that shit needs to be brought back. We are a direct we by me we are a direct product of not having civics taught in schools, and our sole purpose was to pass the TOS test. Yes, it was a TOS test when I was in school. So I think that it's so important that we continue to put this. So I'm going to be doing some fun stuff here in the next few months. But remember y'all, at the end of the day, it's not only about politics, it's about participation. It's about knowing that your voice matters. It matters more than you think. If no one has told you lately, you're not stuck, you're not powerless. You just haven't been shown where to start and how to help. And so this is what we're here for. Reach out to me if you are looking for resources. Remember, you can vote or you can find out your registration status on epcountyvotes.com locally. And I believe ballotopedia.org if you're listening to us outside of El Paso. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are in crisis, you can reach out to 988. It's the crisis helpline. They will be able to have offer you resources. And just thank you all for tuning in and listening and sharing. I think that it's so important, and I am very grateful to you all. Manny, thank you again, and I look forward to our next conversation. Until then, remember to keep on talking about the hard things so you can start enjoying the good things. We'll talk to you on the next one.